Hi there, it's Sabrina Jean. Since you asked about astrology, and since just yesterday I posted a different video referring to the sense of timing using astrology, I wanted to take this another step further to help you to understand, well, not only astrology in general, but the timing of things and how astrology affects our lives. And honestly, even I wasn't aware of how much I was affected by my own personal birth astrology and transits until things really started changing in my life that made me start to question the nature of reality, why I was experiencing the things that I was experiencing. And then over time, and out of my curiosity, I wanted to know the truth. And so this is part of the way that I learned how to follow through and trust the synchronicities, to connect with my spirit guides. And by the way, my spirit guides, I still to this day do not know exactly what or who they are. And it's my understanding that that's not even really necessary. It's not so important to know that, just to find a way to trust, which also helps us to trust our intuition as well. So that aside, what I'm going to do is pop up on the screen in front of you astrology charts for the United States. And there are three particular timelines that I created. I do use a Android app which is called Astrogold. And honestly, Astrogold is what I purchased and downloaded to help me to start tracking and even understanding, learning more specifically about what astrology is. But keep in mind, even any astrologer who creates an app is going to describe the energy of everything based on their perspective. But it was this perspective that I really needed at the time that I started learning more about astrology. And over time, I feel like this app is, well, outdated, or it's old. But in fact, I think what happened is the evolution of my own consciousness and my life, my path, my purpose moved beyond the simple interpretations of this Astrogold app. There are, other astrologers, especially the professional ones that refer to evolutionary astrology, which is just general astrology. Even they have their own interpretation. Everyone has their own opinion, right? Okay, so I'm going to start from the very beginning as a beginner. And trust me, this is something I've been trying to figure out a way to share with other people, because it is so helpful when we're aware of these invisible energies that are always affecting our lives, our health, our mind, our emotions, our reality, etc. So the first chart I want to pull up on the screen, which you're probably seeing already right now in front of you. All right, and so the best way for me to explain this is to go back in history of the United States before it was the United States. So this chart that you see in front of you says December 11th, 1748. And technically, in 1748, we had the 13 colonies, of course. And what's really significant as far as change in society and change in humanity is concerned is the planet Pluto. And what's interesting is that there are other cultures, there are other perspectives of astrology in other countries as well. They interpret things differently. They use astrology in a different way, however their society needs. And It's my understanding that there are many that practice Vedic astrology that don't even acknowledge the planet Pluto as, well, a planet. I practice Western tropical astrology, just for the record. But looking at this, okay, so you see, it's kind of like a sun, right? And you see all these symbols and numbers, which probably make no sense to you whatsoever. And if you look closer, there are different boxes that are sectioned off, and they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, starting from the left side. But each planet, like if you looked down to the lower left side, the box that says 3, so that symbol on the left in the blue is Neptune, and that horseshoe upside down looking thing is actually the south node, which the south node is not a planet, it's an angle of the moon. However, if you look above those, you'll see another symbol, which is a symbol for Cancer, the energy of Cancer. And of course, you have numbers and digits there as well. Every tiny piece of detail with these in this particular moment in time. And again, according to this chart, December 11, 1748, at 4:23 p.m. in the afternoon, somewhere in Mississippi. I just chose a random state. This is what the people in this area, excuse me, on Earth were experiencing. And so from my perspective, since Neptune is a planet of faith, belief systems, it could be religion, philosophy. It was currently in transiting Cancer energy, which is a water sign. So to me that says at this point in time, humans were very deeply emotional about their faith, what they believed in, their religion, their practice. But notice it's in house number 3. And the third house represents communication, talking about things, or trying to understand things, or sharing information. Of course, at the time we did not have internet, so it was something that was limited to the community. I would think that during that time, of course, we had the colonies, right? People had to group together, to stay together because they all practiced a certain belief or a lifestyle, that sort of thing. But they were also experiencing probably a lot of emotional, I don't even know how to, emotional experiences. Well, consider what people were experiencing in 1748, especially if you came across the ocean from Europe. You were longing for a better life. But at the same time, with Neptune and the South Node right next to each other there, what does this mean? The South Node, generally, it's a detaching of something. So at this point in time, humans were influenced by the need to detach from a certain belief or a certain lifestyle that was no longer supporting them, which is probably why they chose to come to the, North America. They wanted a different kind of life. They wanted to be free. They wanted to be free to practice their own religion without being forced, which is, of course, something that we already know of what happened in history. So they fled countries that were forcing them, to just one specific belief. Remember, I was referring to Pluto a minute ago. Pluto is very profound, especially right now, the changes that are happening in society and countries and even in us individually. So if you look to the right side of this chart, you'll see a line, and then on the far right, you'll see it looks like the letter M with an arrow that's kind of hooking up, and the number just above that says 29. But look to the left and you'll see two planets. The one on the bottom is Pluto. The one right on top of it is Mercury. They were sharing the same space in the sky at this time. And that symbol to the left is the symbol of Sagittarius, the truth seeker, the freedom lover, desiring a life free from rule or govern or popular belief. And the 00 actually represents spiritual growth, something new, something more spiritual that is ready to be birthed or to be created. And again, this is what was happening at this time in history. And notice the house that this is in is number 7, which is relationships. Our relationships with each other, how we talk to one another. We have the power to declare ourselves independent from any other sort of rule that, well, especially if we no longer believe in those things. And actually, I want to point out really quickly that recently, which generation was it? I think it was starting in the, I think it was the end of the 1980s and through the 1990s, and I don't have specific dates here, but that's not really necessary. Pluto was going through this transit in Sagittarius, so the newer generations that were born in the 80s or 90s actually were born not necessarily believing in any one specific religion or practice, but they have the ability to incorporate all of them. And of course, the children that were born during these decades, they didn't really become adults until the 2000s or the 2010s. And if you noticed all the significant change or spirituality and that sort of thing, which began, after or around 2010, 2012, spirituality really became more popular. So everyone was being liberated from certain belief systems. And this is something with Pluto transiting Sagittarius has affected, the entire population. But the difference between those of us who have already been around for a couple of decades and the new children that were born during Pluto and Sagittarius is that for those of us who were born in a different zodiac element, it's part of our life path purpose and theme. So for example, I was born during Pluto in Virgo, and the Pluto in Virgo generation, part of our life purpose is to make that connection between the mind, the body, the emotion, etc. And I hope I come across that way in a nonchalant kind of way on my YouTube channel, because I have definitely learned how to connect those links between the mind, the body, spirituality, and more. But let's come back to the chart. If you look at the top in the box that says the number 10, you'll see a symbol that looks like a 4. That's the planet Jupiter. Right next to it to the right is Uranus. So Uranus and Jupiter together at this time in Aquarius, you see the symbol of Aquarius right underneath those squiggly lines. In the 10th house is it's public recognition. So individuals wanted to be free, to be recognized and allowed to believe whatever practices or spirituality or religions that they felt was right for them. They needed that freedom and that independence, which was a big guiding force why so many people started migrating to North America at this time. All right, so I'm pulling up another chart. This chart is September 17, 1787, and I chose this date for a specific reason, but it's important to note that in 1776, the Declaration of Independence was written by those who had come to North America. And it wasn't until 1787 when it was all signed into agreement, the Constitution of the United States of America. And what's interesting is that the Declaration of Independence in 1776 was written right around the time or just after Pluto started its transit in Capricorn, which is the builder, the structure, the faith, the routine, the practice. It kind of resonates with the energy of the number 4, like something stable, that rules that we can live by, but rules that we created for our own society that we are establishing here in the North American continent. I'm trying not to lose you here. So even the Declaration of Independence was influenced by a Pluto transit. And then the Constitution of the United States of America was written during Pluto in its transit through Aquarius. So on this new chart with 1787, if you see on the left side, the box number 1, there's Pluto. And underneath that H with the line through the top is Saturn. Now, Saturn is responsibility. So technically, at the time they wrote the Constitution, Saturn and Pluto were sharing space in the sky. And technically, these are like separate higher intelligences. You could call it source, you could call it God, you can call it spirit, you can call it whatever you want. But these are the things that influence each and every one of us, not only on a national level, but also on a personal level too. Now, these are, the charts I'm showing you right now are just based on the history of America, right? And its process of the people coming here seeking a free life. Well, and it's my understanding, I'm not a history buff, but my father's family migrated from Scotland or Ireland, Northern Ireland or Scotland, which he's tracked through genealogy. And I don't know, maybe this is part of the reason why I love food so much. Is it possible this is why I love potatoes? Right? I love potatoes. I don't know where I get this love of potatoes from, but I crave them. So it's something in the blood. It's something in the DNA. And so, people do have the right to grow their own food, to have their own land. People have the right to survive. And the means and the way and the practices that they are right for them and not necessarily everyone else. So this is why the United States is so independent from other countries. And honestly, other countries are going to have their own opinion about people born in America. But if you were born in America too, then there's just something different about you that you're also carrying within your blood from your ancestors and what they went through, at the time that they were here living on the earth. By the way, really quickly, that being said, I want to share a really quick fact. When we are in our mother's womb, as a fetus and we're growing, we absorb everything that the mother was experiencing at the time that she was carrying us. Emotions, thoughts, anxiety, stress. Of course, naturally, if you've been pregnant, if you've had children, then you know that there may have been a different response or reaction to certain kind of foods while you were pregnant. But we absorb all of this into our bodies as fetuses and babies before we are born. So there are some natural tendencies that we all have. It's in our blood, it's in our DNA, right? It's in our coding that transfers through generation to generation to generation. The cool fact about modern times is that humanity has become intelligent enough to realize that we can reprogram anything that is disturbing us. And I guess this might have come in with the Pluto and Virgo generation, which is a generation I was born into. I was born in 1967, and I think Pluto and Virgo began in 63 or 64. until like 1970 or the early 70s, something like that. So during these decades, humans were meant to start becoming aware of our mind, our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs, our practices, so that we could connect the dots. And even by doing that, when we connect the dots, then it gives us kind of like a permission slip to change our lifestyle or change what we believe, or, to make positive changes in our daily routines or whatever it is that we want to change. So before I pull up the next chart, I want to show you, I want to point out really quickly, as of last year, we, in 2024, Pluto has moved back into Aquarius. Or was that earlier this year? It might have been earlier this year. So we are just now beginning the new Pluto in Aquarius cycle. And Pluto is going to be in Aquarius. What is Aquarius? Aquarius is everyone. It's humanity. It's creating shared opportunities, equal opportunity, a vision for not just the self, but for everyone. And so each one of us is going to be affected by this Pluto in Aquarius transit for the next 20 years, because this is how long it's going to last. So technically, and remember, if we go back to 1776, when the Declaration of Independence, and there were huge, significant things, events happening in humanity at that time. And so we are experiencing something similar. And astrologers will say that history repeats itself, but now in 2025, everything has changed. The players have changed, society has changed. There are so many new things that are like becoming a thing, and even the AI and other kinds of new technologies are influenced by this Aquarius influence, which is going to continue again for 20 years. So if you've been experiencing changes in your personal life that don't necessarily make sense, it's probably something to do with your Pluto in your birthday chart and your transit. It will reveal why you're experiencing this powerful, it's a transformative process. But if you're not aware of the energy or what's causing you to feel or experience anything that you're doing, then it might make you start questioning whether you're crazy or not. And trust me, I've been there. But because I seek the truth, I always want to know why. And in my process of connecting with my spirit guides and getting answers to my questions, I wanted to know the truth. And if you really want to know the truth about something, just start seeking, looking for answers, or ask yourself or tell your spirit guide you want to know the truth about this or that. And they will send you a synchronicity. Things might start showing up in your YouTube feed to get your attention, but it's important to follow through with that, because everything that is showing up in your life, in your reality, for a reason. And then what you do with that, again, is totally up to you as well. But this is why everything seems to be changing all across the planet in different countries, etc., because humanity is going through a shift in consciousness. And so people who are more rigid or stuck in their ways are going to resist. And especially if they're feeling something that doesn't make sense, or they're feeling an energy that scares them, then, it could drive them crazy if they don't know how to deal with that. And so again, it's not just Pluto, but there are other really important planets, and even the numbers, the zodiac signs that they're transiting, and everything is always moving in the sky. The planets don't stay in the same zodiac or the same degree or the same area of the sky for very long. Some of them are fast moving, but others they move more slowly, but everything is always in the continual process of expansion and evolution of consciousness. Everything keeps growing, expanding, changing. And this is the nature of life as a human. So life as a soul or a spirit is a totally different story. So let me pop over to this other chart that I want to show you really quickly. This is my proof. This is my evidence. Okay. So we want to look for the little planet symbol, which is down there in box number 4. It kind of looks like a stick figure with a curve underneath the head. The degree is 0, 0. Above that is the symbol for Capricorn. And it also says 0, 0 above that. So it's at 0, 0, 0 point field. It's a reset button for humanity. Happened, well, Pluto began its transit in Capricorn, January 25, 2008. But what I experienced in my personal life was like the destabilization of structures, practices, things that were false support systems, including financial, started just crumbling. And technically, this was a really huge shift in my life too, because the last time Pluto began its transit in Capricorn, which is the builder, right? The builder of structures, power, practice, everything Capricorn represents. I actually had just previously been laid off from my career that I had been in for a while. I was making pretty awesome money, but the company itself was downsizing, and ultimately I was laid off. And, well, that was like the ending of a phase, I suppose, and the beginning of a new phase and cycle in my life too. But there's so many more things that changed in my personal life. And what I also noticed is that when I started studying my own personal astrology transits, the nodes of the moon, so if you see on the left, you see Saturn, the H with the horseshoe that's upside down, that's the south node. And the opposite of that was to the right. In the 6th house, which is the box with the number 6, there's the north node, there's Uranus, there's Neptune. And what happened was I was released from something that I was holding on to that was helping me to survive. And I'm thinking, now that I'm looking at it, I experienced this in order to be set on a path to learn or to discover something else, something new. But also, it started the beginning of me learning how to trust myself. What's interesting is at the time, I knew I needed to find different kind of work because there wasn't the same kind of work available anymore. And I chose to go to massage school, which is interesting because I've always been in the administrative field. I've always worked with the public. I create documents. I'm a statistical report, right? Thus all the details and attention to detail. I'm a very statistical person. But being laid off from a career that was full of details and documents and structure and this and that, to end up going to massage school, which is like totally the opposite, which actually was awesome for me at the time, because when I got my license and I started actually doing massage therapy at a spa, it was like the best thing ever. Because why? Well, because you don't have to talk to people. You don't have to explain things to people. You don't have to, show up. You don't have to get dressed up, professionally to go in and sit in an office all day long and work with a computer. It was a completely different experience. And that's actually what I needed to experience at the time. So let's just fast forward to 2015, because 2015, a lot of huge things started changing in my life as well. Again, I track that to a Pluto transit in my personal chart. But for me in 2015, everything that I thought I believed in was no longer supporting me. And that was a really interesting experience that I was having. But it started my journey to start seeking more answers, more truths. I started listening to spiritual channels, esoteric information, and well, I got into energy healing, which technically is just becoming aware of the invisible, right? Because energy isn't necessarily something that we see, but if we can feel it, we can work with it, and we know what to do with that, we can change everything, we can heal everything. Mine started with Reiki, but I was already doing massage therapy. But I started learning more about the chakras, the energy centers in the human body. And then over time, with the questions I was asking myself or asking the sky, why is this happening? What do I need to know? I just want to know the truth. Because it's true. I just wanted to know the truth. I still want to know the truth about everything. The meaning of reality, existence. I want to know it all. And the universe has not failed me. But again, it's something that, if it's something that you're called towards and you just start looking for answers and you want to know, and you're going to be responsible with what information you're being given, then you won't be denied by the higher power. But it wasn't until like 2017, 2018 when I bought the Astrology app, which is this one that you see. It's Astrogold again. I think it's like 20 something bucks. The cool thing about this app is that it's very user friendly. You can move things, you can change things. You can even watch the planets change from minute to minute. It gets that detailed. But it helped me to learn because it explains everything, even the transits. And when I started understanding how the planets move through our personal lives and our astrology according to our birthday, I started, once I had a grasp of that, I started going back in time because I was asking myself, well, what was happening in the sky when I got laid off from that awesome career? Why would that even happen? I didn't want to let go of that, but I was kind of forced to change. And eventually over the years, I even went back to like the time that I was in my mother's womb and I saw what was happening at that time. And so what my mother was experiencing when I was a fetus were also things that I was picking up on emotionally, sensitivities and other things because, well, I was already a conscious entity, right, that was growing in my mom's tummy. And this is where I've discovered more truths. That makes sense to me because I now have a way to track the time of events. And the more I understood, the planets, the meaning of the planets and the influence of the zodiac signs and the elements and the timing of things. And of course, there's numerology because there's information behind the numbers too. There's a meaning for the numbers. And over time, I was just able to put two and two together to give myself my own OMG realizations. And I've also learned to, let's just put it this way, if there's any given day I'm just feeling out of sorts and maybe I can't gather my wits together, maybe I don't know what to create, I will go to the Astrology app and I will look to see what is the most powerful transit that is affecting my birthday chart at this time. And that doesn't fail either. It always reveals something that's an influence. And even that influence in itself, it lets me know, it reassures me, okay, so I'm not going crazy. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't be thinking so hard right now. Maybe I just need to watch a movie. It gives me ideas and insights that can help me either pass the time and try not to force anything. And the same transits can also reveal, when it's power time, time to buckle down and focus. You can create greater success, or you can find more happiness, or there's more healing that is available, during this transit or that transit. And I've even, in recent years, I started experiencing health situations in my physical health, which I had no idea why those things were happening to me, because most of my life I've been blessed with good health. But that even encouraged me to seek more truth about the astrological reasons why anyone has a health problem. Mental problems, physical problems, emotional problems. It's all there. It's all there in your natal astrology chart, and also the transits. So we could go halfway through our life in perfect health, and then all of a sudden, whammy, things just start changing. And that's what happened to me. So, if you've been around the block a few decades or more, then, we have a tendency to get stuck in our ways. We get comfortable. Life just becomes natural. And some people were meant to stay in a certain area or a country or, a state all of their life. But others are here to experience change at the highest level. And I think that's me, because I've always been on the go. I've always wanted to learn. I've always wanted to rise above, expand my awareness, expand my knowledge. I've always been seeking truth. And even those things and that inspiration or that physical vitality that excites me to go looking for more is also influenced by transits, Mars transits. Well, all of the transits technically. So it does take time to start learning more about each detail, because each detail in your astrology has a role, it has a purpose, it has meaning, and there's also opportunities. So there's other placements that reveal a point in time where doorways of opportunity will start showing up for us. So literally, understanding astrology and transits can help one understand the meaning of life. But also it's important to remember that we are all born into a specific frequency, depending on location, the time, the mother, right? The DNA, the ancestry, the blood type, the eye color. And there isn't any one other human being on the planet that is exactly the same as you are. That's how exquisite we all are on an individual level. So there's something very different, there's something very unique, there's something very blessed, there's something very purposeful that is here to experience whatever life you've been experiencing. And if you're listening to this right now, then you were also born into a society where we all pretty much had to conform with everyone else in one way, shape, or form. We had to follow the rule. But all of that is changing. And this Pluto is no longer in Capricorn, the builder. It actually has deconstructed all of those false belief systems so that everyone could free themselves. Everyone's free to believe whatever it is that they choose to believe. But what everyone does not know is that their unique frequency, according to their birthday information, is different from everyone else's. So we're not supposed to be exactly like one another. We're supposed to be different. And there's a reason for that too, but not everyone will agree with that. Which is why there's so much conflict and opposition happening all across the planet right now, because people don't realize, the essence of who they truly are. And so moving forward over the next 20 years with Pluto moving through Aquarius, everyone has the potential to like wake up to this new truth, which is changing, consciousness of humanity in general over time. And this itself is a 20-year cycle. But it's also important to remember that people choose to incarnate to have certain experiences as a human. And so there are many people that didn't choose to wake up. There are many people that don't even want to become aware. They don't really care. They're just, living their life according to, their astrology and transits, whether they realize that's what's affecting them, right? Whether they realize this or not. Okay, so I really thought this would be a 20-minute video, but obviously not the case. But I really hope this gets you to thinking. I hope it inspires you to learn more about your own personal astrology. And if you don't have like the mindset to do that on your own, I'd be happy to help you with that. And it's not that you have to request like a huge astrology, life path, purpose, destiny reading from me, although that can help a lot. But one of the reasons why I created this Patreon is because I want to offer individuals like a monthly statistical report, because that's what I'm good at. Especially if you were trying to figure out what's happening right now, what do you need to know in the bigger picture, what is the influence of this month for you? What is the influence of this year? What will be the bigger influence next year? What is exactly that you want to know right now that's happening in your life that you maybe do not currently understand? That's my specialty. So if you would like a reading for the month ahead, and of course you're a patron, then do message me to let me know. I will need to know your birthday details. But that being said, I hope you found this video interesting, to say the least. So, wishing you a wonderful day. If you have any questions, feel free to comment on either the post here, or if you click through to YouTube, you can comment on the video if you want. Okay, bye for now.